back to my channel. This is Leo's Nerd Talk, and today we're going to be talking about Kong Skull Island. So let's get into that. Kong Skull Island tells a story about a group of military men as well as some explorers and the people of Monarch that we have been getting to know in this MonsterVerse, especially with the newer series like Monarch, going to Skull Island and trying to discover if there's any monsters there and finding that Kong is the main predator. Now, out of all the MonsterVerse movies, this one was always my favorite, and rewatching it today, well, there's still some flaws that I've actually noticed now that I've never noticed previously. I still generally really enjoy this movie, and I think it's a great King Kong movie, very close to the, I believe it's 2008 King Kong movie with Jack Black in it. That's probably my favorite King Kong movie of all time, but this one is still awesome, epic, crazy fight scenes. I just love pretty much everything that this movie kind of brings to the table. So that being said, let's go ahead and get into the pros for me. And like I said, I just really love the actual concept of King Kong. I think King Kong is a awesome monster in the MonsterVerse, as well as the concept of this movie where they're going to the island, you know, discovering King Kong for the first time, and just all the action, the fight sequences, all the different creatures that they kind of encounter. It just leads for a very fun, epic movie. And that's what this movie is kind of really good for, is for just having a lot of fun. This is a popcorn movie, right? You know, sit down with the family and just enjoy some epic King Kong fun. And I enjoy most of the performances here too as well. Some pretty big names, of course, stuff like Samuel L. Jackson. I can't remember his name, but I think his last name was like Wilson or something like that. I always forget his name when I'm trying to look him up and try to recognize who he is, but he's kind of the guy that has been on Skull Island for over like 44 years or whatever the case may be. He does pretty good. And then most of the cast, there's certain people that I recognize from different shows and movies. Of course, you have Brie Larson here as well. And I think the casting does a pretty good job, but everybody has pretty decent performances. I also like the setting of this place. Of course, we're on Skull Island, but also just the era that we're in. I think this takes place during the Vietnam Cold War era, right around that mark. I can't remember exactly, but I just love that era. I just love kind of the helicopters, the weaponry, the music, kind of fitting it all with that in that era. I just really enjoy that visuals, the like I said, the weapons, the explosions, the music. It just feels really epic, and it kind of has that like old school war cheesy movie style where everything is about being brutal and having your muscles out and the rock music in the background while you're shooting in slow mo, so it has that vibe to this movie, and I just really enjoy that vibe that it brings. And I kind of touched this briefly earlier, but I just really love all the fight sequences. This movie does a very good job of showing Kong very early within the film, and it doesn't really let off that pedal throughout the entire time. You're constantly seeing Kong, whether he's fighting the helicopters when they first get on the island, whether he's fighting a sea octopus or he's fighting these skull crushers. Just you're constantly seeing Kong doing his thing, fighting, having these epic battles, or even just like protecting this like village that's been on Skull Island for so long. So very different than what Godzilla gave us back in 2014, where you barely saw him on screen. Kong Skull Island, you're constantly seeing King Kong on screen, which is what I want, especially when you go in towards a monster movie. You just want to see these monsters fight in epic, awesome ways. And like I said, this movie is just an enjoyable movie to watch. You can always throw this movie on. You don't have to watch the rest of the MonsterVerse movies. If you don't want to, you can sit this as a standalone film. It does its job. It's epic. It's fun. It's funny. It's one of those popcorn movies you can throw on at any time and just have a blast with it. And that's why I really enjoy Kong Skull Island. Now going on to the cons for me, and there's not much. There's just little things that I just want to bring up, like to nitpick, just because I'm a nitpicker for some reason sometimes with these films, because I feel like there's always something that you can talk about and discuss when it comes to cons. But in terms of this film, there's just certain things that like you're watching and you're like, it just doesn't make sense. Like I get it, it's a cheesy, fun monster movie, but it still kind of doesn't make sense. Like for instance, as an example, they're going through the storm to get into Skull Island, and they're going in these helicopters. Now, keep in mind, helicopters aren't quiet, right? You have the big rotors on top of you, going along, and then you have the storm itself, the wind blowing, the thunder, the lightning. The doors are open on the actual helicopter, and you have like Samuel L. Jackson. all right, guys, you guys are ready? We're almost there. Like he's whispering, like, nah, 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 motherfucker. That's not how it works. Like it should be so loud you're not gonna be able to hear it. So like it's like those little small things that you notice where you're like, that's not how it works. You know what I mean? But like I said, those are little small things to nitpick. CGI wise, there's certain shots where you can definitely tell it's heavily CGI. But for the most part, Kong himself looks really good. There's like certain other monsters, like I think the Skull Crusher doesn't really look that good. And pretty much all the scenes, like his face definitely looks very digital and very shiny, kind of like how Godzilla did in the previous movie. It's just very shiny. You can tell like the texture of the way it kind of looks. It just looks very digital, and that is not there. Or even stuff like the structures of this kind of village that's been there for a very long time, like the wall that they've supposedly built. That looks very digital. So there's certain shots and stuff where you can definitely tell the CGI was used heavily. And I don't know why, but I just didn't really enjoy the whole Samuel Jackson revenge story against Kong. Like it doesn't feel believable. Like I understand that, Kong killed a lot of his men and he would be very angry about that. But just the way Samuel Jackson kind of portrays it, it just seems very unrealistic and very cheesy, and it just doesn't feel like he's actually angry at it. And it just doesn't come off as a very believable kind of revenge story for him. And while this movie, like I said, is just a good fun time to kind of throw on and just have a fun time watching a movie, I wish there was still just a little bit more of a plot that's kind of going on here, because I feel like it kind of gets lost in translation as the time goes on within the film. You have these scientists that want to get there to figure out if there are monsters, because you've been trying to prove that there's been monsters for so many years. And the government wants to shut Monarch down as a project because they don't believe him anymore, and all this kind of stuff. And they finally get there, they get the monster, and they start doing the research, and that kind of just gets thrown out the water, and it becomes just kind of more of a survival story. And even towards the end of it, by the time they get off the island, or we assume they get off the island, it doesn't really delve more deep into making people believe that they actually got this research done and all this footage done. So I just wish there was a little bit more plot within that, besides just we got on this island, there's a giant monkey here, let's survive, let's get off. It's a very simple, cutthroat, straightforward plot. I wish there was a little bit more to flesh out there. But let me know what you guys think about Kong Skull Island. Do you guys enjoy the King Kong movies? Do you guys like the big giant monster movies? Are you excited for Kong X Godzilla, or Godzilla X Kong, whichever it is, the new Empire? I'm pretty excited for it. I know I'm gonna have a bunch of my buddies. We're gonna go on and have a blast with the new movie, and I hope to review the other MonsterVerse movies for a big ranking once that movie comes out. And again, if you guys like Talking Anything movies, TV shows, or video game related, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. And I'll see you guys on the next review. Thank you.